Nastia rolled over onto her side with difficulty to crawl off the only sofa in their small one-room apartment. In the 7th month of pregnancy, any movement required enormous effort from her. Her back ached from constant tension, her stomach seemed to be pulling her toward the ground, and the nights turned into a painful wait for dawn. She was awakened more than once by the baby's movements, but this time her sleep was interrupted by her husband's voice from the kitchen. "Mom, of course, stay," Sergei said loudly, trying to shout over the sound of the boiling kettle. "We will always have a place for you." Nastia closed her eyes, feeling how resentment fettered her heart. He again decided everything himself, without talking, without questions. This was already becoming habitual. She sighed and tried to contain her irritation, but discontent still broke through to the surface in the form of a heavy sigh. A minute later, the door to the room opened, and Sergei entered with a cup of tea. He looked pleased, as if he had just done something incredibly important and useful. "Nastia, how are you?" asked her husband, sitting down next to her and kissing her temple out of habit. "Mom is coming tomorrow for a couple of days. Isn't that hard for you?" Nastia glanced at him. "A couple of days," she repeated to herself. That's what Sergei said every time his mother decided to drop by for a while. Her last visit lasted 3 weeks, and those were the longest 3 weeks in Nastia's life. Quote, "Sergei, where will she sleep?" his wife asked cautiously, trying to keep her voice even. "Here on the couch, of course," answered her husband so easily, as if it was an obvious answer. "And we'll put down a mattress on the floor. Your back hurts, it'll be even better that way." Nastia froze. Her gaze slid to the small rug on the floor. Empty, despite the rug. And the thought that she would have to sleep on the floor while pregnant was simply unbearable. "Wait. So you want me to sleep on the floor with my belly?" Her voice grew a little louder, although she tried not to raise it. Sergei frowned, clearly not expecting such resistance. "Nastia, what's wrong with you? Mom will be uncomfortable at the ball. She's an older woman, her back hurts, she needs comfort. And you, can't get enough sleep on a soft mattress?" The wife closed her eyes so as not to say something harsh. Anger burned her from the inside. Quote, "Comfort," the woman thought. "And my comfort? Am I even a person here or what?" "Sergei, I can't sleep on the floor," his wife said quietly but firmly. "It's hard enough as it is. You know that. Come on. You always find a solution." The man waved her off, getting up and heading back to the kitchen. "Don't worry, everything will be fine." Nastia ran her hand over her stomach, trying to calm down a little, but the resentment did not go away. She felt unnecessary, as if her opinion meant nothing at all. "Why do I always have to give in?" she thought, looking out the window at the snowy yard. The upcoming visit from her mother-in-law promised to be a real test, and this time she decided that she would not remain silent. The next day arrived. From the very morning, the apartment began to bustle. Sergei was unfolding an old folding mattress, checking if it had gotten knocked down somewhere in the closet, and looking for clean bed linen for his mother. Nastia, on the contrary, tried to remain calm, but her internal irritation only increased with each passing hour. Their apartment was modest. A small room combined with a kitchen, and a tiny bathroom. The only window overlooked the yard, where it was always noisy, with the sound of the courtyard and rare passing cars. There was little space even for the two of them, but now they had to squeeze even more for the sake of their mother-in-law's comfort. Quote, "Nastyusha, help me pull the duvet cover up," Sergei called, struggling with the unyielding fabric. "Sergei, do you really think this is normal?" the wife began, walking up to him and crossing her arms over her chest. The man glanced at her serious face, but quickly looked away. Quote, "Well, what's wrong?" he muttered, clearly sensing that the conversation would not be easy. "Do you want your pregnant wife to sleep on the floor while your mother lies on the couch?" Her voice sounded calm, but there were notes of despair in it. Don't you think this is unfair? Sergei straightened up and sighed wearily. Nastya, come on, don't start. It will be uncomfortable for Mom. She's old, she needs something softer. And what, can't you sleep on a mattress for a couple of nights? Don't make a tragedy out of it. Tragedy? Quote. His wife asked, feeling her face flush. Sergei, I'm carrying your child. It's getting harder and harder for me every day, and you put your mother's comfort above mine. Do you understand what you're saying? Quote. The man's face tensed, but he tried to remain calm. You're exaggerating. It's only for a couple of days. You know how Mom is, well, she's sensitive. If she's uncomfortable, she'll drive you crazy. And as for me, that means you can drive me crazy, she interrupted, no longer holding back her anger. Sergei, I'm your wife. You and I should be a family, partners, but now I feel like an outsider in my own home. Quote. Sergei fell silent. Apparently, her words touched him to the quick. He turned away, as if trying to avoid the conversation. Okay, Nastya, he finally said in a cold tone. Let's do it this way. If it's so difficult for you, I'll talk to Mom myself. Just please don't make a scene. Quote. Okay? Her husband went into the kitchen, leaving her standing in the middle of the room. Nastya ran her hand over her stomach, trying to calm herself down. Everything was boiling inside her, but at the same time she felt weak. She didn't want to quarrel, didn't want to break this thin thread that connected them as a family. But she knew one thing. This could not go on any longer. In the evening, her mother-in-law entered the apartment. Zinaida Mikhailovna was a woman of average height, with lush black hair, neatly styled in a hairstyle. She adored red blouses, and today she did not change her preference, adding large golden earrings to her bright outfit. Her eyes immediately filled with joy as soon as she saw Sergei. Son, she exclaimed, holding out her arms to him, how I've missed you. Sergei hugged her and helped her take off her coat. Nastya silently watched this scene from the room, feeling how the tension in the air was only growing. Nastenka, how are you? Zinaida Mikhailovna addressed her, coming closer. Oh, what a big belly you have already. You'll be giving birth soon. Oh, never mind, be patient, these are all temporary difficulties. Quote. Nastya barely held back a sarcastic smile. Temporary difficulties, she thought. This apparently now applies to her comfort as well. Everything is fine, thank you, the daughter-in-law answered briefly, trying to look friendly. Well, that's good, Zinaida Mikhailovna nodded. Sergei has already told me everything. I'm only here for a couple of days. Don't worry. I won't cause you any trouble. I'll just make a bed on the sofa, and you can do it on the floor somehow. Okay, you're young, it's not difficult for you. Quote. Nastya felt her face flush. She looked at Sergei, hoping that he would say something in her defense. But he only looked away, pretending to be busy unpacking his bags. You know, Zinaida Mikhailovna? The daughter-in-law began in a voice that, despite her efforts, trembled. Perhaps it would be more convenient for you to return home? We don't have much space, and it's not easy for me right now. The woman raised her eyebrows. What's this? She exclaimed, offended. I've been helping you all my life, and now I've come for 2 days and you're making such reproaches. Sergei, did you hear that? Nastya stared at her husband, expecting him to finally stand up for her, but he just shrugged his shoulders guiltily. Mom, don't be offended. Nastya's just tired. It's hard for her right now. Of course it's hard, Zinaida threw up her hands. Mikhailovna, quote, pregnancy is not an illness, by the way. Everyone goes through it, and nothing happens. And that means I have to wander the streets. No, I'll stay here. Nastya felt a wave of indignation growing inside her. She could no longer remain silent. Quote, Zinaida Mikhailovna, you misunderstood me. The daughter-in-law tried to speak evenly, but there was still a hint of resentment. I don't mind you staying. Just understand me too. It's hard for me now, and sleeping on the floor is not an option. The mother-in-law narrowed her eyes, as if trying to figure out where Nastia's words were getting so much courage from. Then she looked at Sergei, as if expecting him to take her side at any moment. "Sergei, do you hear that?" she exclaimed, adding a note of resentment to her voice. "Your wife is trying to kick me out. And she even came up with some excuses. It's hard for me. In our time, we didn't have any conditions or anything. No one complained." Nastia felt a lump rise in her throat. She turned to her husband, who had been standing silently all this time, his gaze lowered. Quote, "Sergei, are you going to do something?" his wife asked, no longer hiding her irritation. "Or is it normal for you that your pregnant wife will sleep on the floor to please your mother?" The man raised his head, but still avoided her gaze. Quote, "Nastia, I don't want to argue," he said quietly. "It's really only for a couple of days. Is it really that hard to endure?" Nastia exhaled, stunned. She looked at her husband, trying to understand what had happened to him, why he couldn't see her pain. Was she really demanding something impossible? Her eyes filled with tears, but she held back from bursting into tears right in front of her mother-in-law. Quote, "So that's your answer," she said quietly, turning away. Sergei tried to say something, but his wife didn't listen. She went into the bathroom and closed the door behind her. There, leaning against the sink, she finally gave in to her tears. The woman felt lonely, betrayed. At that moment, she just wanted to leave, disappear, so that neither Sergei nor his mother could pressure her anymore. Later in the evening, Nastia nevertheless returned to the room. She felt Zinaida Mikhailovna looking at her with cold politeness. Sergei sat at the table, staring at his phone, clearly trying to avoid conversation. Nastia quietly lay down on the sofa, covering herself with a blanket. The mattress that Sergei had so thoughtfully laid on the floor remained untouched. She was not going to give in. Quote, "Nastia, are you really going to lie on the sofa?" the mother-in-law asked sarcastically, turning to her. "Yes," the daughter-in-law answered briefly, "I need to get some sleep. It's important for the child." Zinaida Mikhailovna wanted to answer something, but Sergei stopped her with a gesture. He looked tired, as if this tense atmosphere had tired him more than anyone else. Quote, "Mom, leave her alone," the son said quietly. "It's really hard for her now. Let's just not quarrel." Nastia looked at her husband in surprise. Had he finally heard her? But it was too little and too late. Quote, "Okay, as you wish," Zinaida Mikhailovna snorted discontentedly. "But, you know, I won't leave it like that." With these words, the woman lay down on the mattress, pulling the blanket over herself with force, as if she wanted to show how offended she was. Nastia turned away to the wall, feeling tears running down her cheeks again. The next morning, the tension in the apartment reached its peak. Nastia woke up early, but did not want to get up. She heard Zinaida Mikhailovna talking loudly to Sergei in the kitchen. "Your wife is simply ungrateful," the mother-in-law was indignant. "I tried my whole life for you, and now I can't even calmly ask for a place to stay for the night." "Mom, that's enough," Sergei answered tiredly. "You don't understand that it's difficult for her now." "But it's easy for me," the woman objected. "No one understands me. You are my son, you should support me. Or is your wife more important to you now?" Nastia, lying on the couch, listened to this conversation and felt how everything inside her was shrinking with pain. She wanted to get up and tell them that she didn't need anyone's pity, that she could handle everything herself. But instead, the woman remained lying there, hugging her stomach with her hands. At some point, the door opened slightly. Sergei entered the room. Quote, "Nastia, can we talk?" her husband asked quietly. The woman nodded, silently watching him. Quote, "I didn't want everything to turn out this way," he began, sitting down next to her. "It's just that, you know, Mom has always been like this. She's used to me putting her first. It's hard for me to change that." Nastia looked at her husband, and bitterness flashed in her eyes. "And me? It's easy for me to endure all this. Sergei, I'm not asking for much. I just want you to see me, so that you understand how hard it is for me. I'm your wife, the mother of your child. Isn't that important? Sergei sighed, rubbing his face with his hands. It's important, Nastya, I understand. Just give me time. Okay, I'll try to figure it out. Nastya didn't answer. She knew that words mean nothing if they are not followed by actions. Nastya got up from the sofa later than usual. She felt that the conversation with Sergei, although it gave hope, was far from a final solution to the problem. Tension was still hanging in the air in the apartment. Zinaida Mikhailovna was already doing her usual morning chores, talking loudly on the phone and indignantly retelling the events of last night to one of her friends. Can you imagine? She said loudly, so that Nastya would accidentally hear her. Young people these days are like that, no respect for their elders. And by the way, I came here with kindness, with soul, and they are asking me to sleep on the floor. Nastya ignored this jab. She knew that any words she said would only add fuel to the fire. Instead, she went to the kitchen to drink a glass of water and come to her senses a little. But there, Sergei was waiting for her, sitting at the table with a sullen expression on his face. Nastya, I think we should discuss everything, her husband began when she came in. The woman silently poured water into a glass and sat down opposite. Quote, I understand that it is hard for you, he continued, and maybe I really am wrong. Just understand, it is difficult for me to change everything at once. Mom is used to me always being on her side. And if I tell her now that she should leave or sleep on the floor, it will be a disaster. Don't you think we're already in a disaster? Nastya interrupted him, looking him straight in the eyes. You see that I feel like a stranger in this house. Do you think that's normal? Her husband sank, not knowing what to answer. His silence only angered Nastya more. Quote, I'm not asking you to choose between me and your mother, she said. I ask you to be a man, to protect your family. Me and our child are your family, we should be your first priority now. Isn't that so? Sergei sighed and lowered his head. You're right, Nastya, her husband finally said. I understand everything. Just give me some time, I'll figure it out. But her patience was already exhausted. She was tired of giving time and waiting for Sergei to figure it out. Time? And how much more do you need until our child is born and starts giving in to your mother too? Her words touched Sergei to the quick. He got up from the table and started walking around the room, as if looking for a way out of the situation. Okay, I'll talk to Mom, her husband suddenly said decisively. Just let's come to an agreement. You won't provoke her either. Try to be softer. Quote, okay. Nastya nodded silently, although inside she felt that she did not want to give in anymore. The conversation with Zinaida Mikhailovna took place closer to the evening. Sergei took her aside, away from Nastya, and began to explain. Mom, I understand that it is not easy for you now, but you should understand Nastya and me too. She is pregnant, it is hard for her, she needs comfort. Maybe it would be better for you to go home? We can always come to visit you if you want. Quote. Zinaida Mikhailovna was stunned. Her face turned pale, and her lips formed a thin line. Are you kicking me out? The woman hissed. After what I have done for you, you choose your wife, who will hardly last another year, instead of her mother, who has been with you your whole life. Sergei tried to calm her down, but this only angered her even more. She threw up her hands, raising her voice so that she could be heard throughout the apartment. I knew you'd forget me as soon as you got a wife, the woman said loudly. Do you think she loves you? You're just convenient. And I'm your mother, and I'll always be on your side. Quote. Nastya heard cracks from the room and felt everything inside her clench. She didn't want to go out, but she knew it would be wrong to leave Sergei alone with this conflict. She took a deep breath, plucked up her courage, and went into the kitchen. Zinaida Mikhailovna, the daughter-in-law, began firmly, despite the trembling in her voice. Please don't make a scene. No one is throwing you out, But you must understand that Sergey and I are a family. We're going to have a child, and now we need your understanding. The mother-in-law turned to her, her eyes burning with indignation. Quote, "Do you think I don't see that you're manipulating me?" The woman said sarcastically. "You think that because you're carrying his child, you can command him? No way, girl, that won't do." Nastya felt her anger growing, but instead of losing her temper, she took a deep breath. "This is not manipulation, this is a request for mutual respect. Sergey and I are adults, and we want to build our own lives. Your opinion is important to us, but not at the expense of our needs." Sergey looked at his wife in surprise. He clearly hadn't expected such firmness from her. Zinaida Mikhailovna wanted to say something, but at that moment her face suddenly changed. She realized that Nastya's words made sense, even if she was uncomfortable admitting it. The woman sighed loudly and waved her hand. Quote, "Okay, do as you wish," she muttered. "I really should go home. There's no place for me here anyway." Sergey tried to object, but Nastya stopped him with a look. She understood that the best solution was to give her mother-in-law the opportunity to leave with pride. Zinaida Mikhailovna left the next day. Sergey volunteered to take her home, although their farewell was very strained. She sighed for a long time, not holding back her resentment, and even shed a tear, complaining about how hard it was to be an unnecessary mother. Nastya did not leave the room so as not to aggravate the situation. She knew that every look or word she said could only make the situation worse. When Sergey returned, he looked tired. Nastya was sitting on the sofa with a cup of tea in her hands, trying to distract herself with a book, but as soon as her husband entered, she put it aside. Quote, "Well?" quietly asked the wife. Sergey sat down next to her and rubbed his shoulders tiredly. Quote, "Mother was offended," he said briefly. "Well, you know her. Her resentment is always loud. But not for long. I think in a couple of days everything will settle down." Nastya silently looked at her husband, not knowing what to say. On the one hand, she felt relieved that now the apartment had again become their quiet corner. But on the other hand, her heart sank from the thought that her husband might have harbored a grudge against her for this conflict. Quote, "Are you angry with me?" she finally asked, unable to stand the pause. Sergey looked up at her. His face was serious, but not cold. Quote, "I'm not angry, Nastya," he said. "I just never thought that I would have to choose between the two of you. You're right, I should have stood by your side earlier. But it wasn't easy for me." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of relief. The woman felt that her husband finally understood her. "I didn't want you to choose. I just want you to respect us both, to protect our family." The husband took her hand and squeezed her fingers. Quote, "I will try," he answered seriously. "I promise." Quote, several days passed. The tension gradually subsided. Zinaida Mikhailovna, as Sergey predicted, calmed down and even called to find out how Nastya was feeling. Although there was still a hint of resentment in her tone, she no longer raised the topic of her visit. Nastya began to feel better. Her night's sleep improved, and the anxiety that had tormented her in recent days retreated. She began to notice how Sergey spent more time with her, helped around the house, asked about her well-being, discussed plans for the future. One evening, when they were sitting together on the couch, he suddenly said, "You know, I've thought a lot about what you said. You're right. I've left Mom above everyone else for too long. But now everything is changing. You and our baby are my everything. I want to be a good husband and father to you." Quote, Nastya smiled. These words meant more to her than any gifts or apologies. She saw that Sergey was really trying. "I believe in you. We can do it together." When their son was born, Sergey turned out to be the caring and attentive father that Nastya had always dreamed of. He rocked the baby at night, let Nastya rest and, as he promised, always put her and the child first. Zinaida Mikhailovna, seeing her grandson, softened. She often called, offered her help and no longer tried to start conflicts. Her love for her grandson outweighed the grievances, and soon she became an indispensable assistant, but on terms that suited everyone. Nastia realized that sometimes, in order to be happy, you need to go through difficult moments, set boundaries and strengthen trust. Her family became a real support for her. And now she knew that nothing could break them.